This is the Louie T Network.
Draft Zone. Draft Zone.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host,
Zone.
Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Who's Next format is attached. Be the first to leave a comment at the bottom of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. We're starting to get down to the nitty-gritty, starting to get towards the end of this series, starting to wrap up the draft coverage of the entire league. So as we dwindle down the number of teams left, make sure you're selecting and requesting a team that hasn't already been done. Make sure you have the two components in the comment, the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next, and make sure it's a team that hasn't already been done. How do we grade these players and these teams and in these drafts? Simple. We use the baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the draft wrap-up series, as we cannot tell how these players will pan out. Don't want to discount anybody. Do not want to count any of these players out. We average up all the scores of the players in that individual team's draft, apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score for that team's draft, give them a grade, and move on to the next team in this series requested by you, the viewer. So, sounds simple enough? Yep, you know it. That's because it is. So, we're talking about America's team, the big star, the Dallas Cowboys, in their 2014 NFL draft. And so, let's get to the big board. I've got my handy dandy pointer. You see the big board behind me. Those are the components that I need to get this party started. Let's talk 2014 NFL draft of the Dallas Cowboys. And you get to this board and you look at all of these picks. My gosh, what a haul for the Cowboys. But this is the anti-Louie T draft right here. And yes, I just dropped a third-person gem on your melon. I don't like these types of drafts. You know how I am. I don't want to see now. And look, it's not because they have 9 players that they selected. I don't have a problem. 9 isn't that bad. Okay, that's not the issue here. The issue here is 5. Count them, 5 7th-round picks. What am I supposed to do with that? Okay, it's okay to have 3 or 2 extra 7th-rounders. Look, I get it. Sometimes you got to make some deals and teams want to toss in complimentary 7th-round picks. You may have lost some free agents and you get some compensatory picks. I get it. 7th-rounders can end up in your lap somehow, some way. That's not the issue. The issue here is that the Cowboys went out of their way to acquire 5 7th-round picks. That's more than all the other rounds combined for this draft for the Cowboys. They have 4 picks outside of the 7th round and 5 in the 7th alone. And again, the hit rate on 7th round picks isn't that high, okay? So the probability of these guys panning out, either making your roster, number 1, or number 2, having a lasting impact on this roster, and number 3, actually becoming really good football players and contributors for your football team, is slim to none. And so let's just assume, for the sake of assuming, that 2 of these 7th rounders pan out. 3 of them still won't have any kind of impact on your football team. And so that's the problem I have with having 5 7th-round picks is that the hit rate on these guys is pretty minimal at best. And so if I'm the Cowboys, I'd much rather have my 6th and my 3rd-round pick instead of an additional 7th-round pick in the place of those picks where I'm supposed to be selecting. But look, you got to do what you got to do. And again, where the most talent is up here toward the top portion of the draft. And if you got to trade away, say, a 6th or a 3rd-round pick, as in the Cowboys case, to get a guy that you really covet, that you think can be a baller for you for the next decade, then you got to do what you got to do. I'm just not a huge fan. You know, look, I'm not going to talk your head off about this. Look, let's just get to the draft and talk about the drama that is the Dallas Cowboys in the 2014 NFL Draft. We start in the 1st round, 16th overall selection, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, Zach Martin. What a pick this was. And let's talk about this pick for a second, because we knew about all the controversy surrounding this pick. And I was one of the people that was glued to my television set, probably like most of you out there, hoping and wishing that Johnny Laces was going to be on the board at 16 to make Jerry Jones have to make a TD. And a TD, for those of you who haven't been watching me and don't know my vernacular, TD is a tough decision. And I wanted Jerry to have to make one in the worst way. Put the gun in his hand, make sure it's fully loaded with bullets in each one of the chambers, and make sure you put the gun squarely in the palm of his hands and see if he's got the balls, the gumption to pull the trigger. And I wanted to see if he was going to pull the trigger on one Jonathan Laces. And if he were able to do so, that would let me know that he still doesn't get it. And so I was sitting there in suspense, and the anticipation was killing me. When they got to 16 and they kept putting the video on the Cowboys War Room, and I know it was going through. And you could see the wheels turning and the gears turning in Jerry Jones's head. He was saying to himself, and he had his little Jerry Jones Ed on one shoulder, and he had the on the other shoulder, he had the good Jerry and the bad Jerry. And he was sitting there, and he was the bad Jerry was like, Jerry, you know you want to make this pick, buddy. He's right there. He's a money-making machine. Jerry, you got to get him. Go get him, Jerry. He can change this franchise. You can make so much money. This guy's a marketing machine, Jerry. Get him. And on the other end, and on the other shoulder, was the good, the smart Jerry. The Jerry that said, now, Jerry, come on now. We've done this before. We don't want to go down this route again, man. We've done this. We're better than that. We've evolved. That's what the old Jerry would do. This is the new Jerry. The Jerry that understands what this team needs. You can't do this, Jerry. It doesn't make any sense. And so he had to pick which one he was going to listen to. He popped the bad one, went with the good one. And you could see that there was an internal struggle here. But at the end of the day, between Stephen Jones and some of the other voices in the room, giving their input and letting Jerry know this isn't something that is going to be smart long term for this football team. You want to be the laughing stock of this league, you pick Johnny Manziel here. If you want to act, look, you just gave Tony Romo a $100 million plus deal. There's no reason to come in and have him looking over his shoulder and bring a guy in like Johnny Manziel that's going to A, command so much media attention. You already have enough of it in Dallas as it is. And B, is going to have Tony Romo feeling even more insecure about himself. And look, he already feels insecure enough because of what the media does to him each and every single time he makes a mistake on the football field. So he doesn't need any more insecurities. He doesn't need any more cameras pointing in his face and microphones pointing in his face, asking him unnecessary questions. He's got enough scrutiny as it is. So for Jerry to say, okay, you guys are right, and for him to understand what was going on here and that the Cowboys have much more and many more pressing needs, they picked maybe one of the safest picks in this draft and tackle Zach Martin out of Notre Dame. And I think it was a wonderful selection. Again, I'm a Notre Dame fan. And you know what? It's refreshing for me to be able to sit here and talk about so many Notre Dame picks. I remember there was a time, like right after Tyrone Willingham, where this program, this Notre Dame program, kind of went south. And there weren't a lot of draft picks, not high ones especially at that, coming out of Notre Dame. And to see what Brian Kelly has done in such a short time at Notre Dame is phenomenal to see all of these high-level, talented guys come out into the draft, whether it be the offensive line or the tight end position, or whether it's a linebacker like Manti Te'o last season, or whatever the case may be, or it's Tom Zibikowski, or a guy like Harrison Smith a season ago, just to see guys come out and have productive careers minus Tom Zibikowski. It's really good to see Louis Nix and all of these guys, Stephon Tuitt. It's just a lot of talent coming from Notre Dame these days. Okay, so Zach Martin, one of the safest picks in this draft. He's a guy that some say could play all 5 positions on the offensive line if you like him to, but I'm a firm believer, and I said this about several other guys in the process. I said this about Joel Bitonio. I've said this about a number of guys that other people seem to think they can't do something, and I said it about Jason Verrett as well. Until you prove to me that they can't, why not? If they did it in college, and I know the NFL is a whole nother monster onto itself, but until you prove to me that this guy can't do something, then why not? I draft Zach Martin, and he proves to me that he can get it done at the left tackle position. Why not? Now, I understand why not in Dallas. You've got a left tackle. And so there's no need to force left tackle on this guy. If you feel good about your left tackle position, which I assume you do, then put him at right tackle. And I remember the debate last season about whether a guy like Justin Pugh deserved to be drafted as high as he was because his arms weren't long enough. You know, the Giants took him at about, let's call it 20 last year. And here we are looking at Zach Martin, and we're having the same discussion with him. Is his arms long enough? Is he big enough? Is he long enough, tall enough? Forget about all of that, okay? It's not like the guy's 6'1" trying to play the tackle position. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, and his arms are fine. This guy's a technician. He's strong. He's physical. He's smart. He's everything you're looking for in a tackle in this league. I honestly think he could play left tackle if need be. You have a left tackle. There's no need for him to play left tackle. So that's even better. You're asking him to play right tackle, and he should be able to handle that with no problem. You got some people saying, well, he didn't play guard at Notre Dame, so can he play guard? Sure, this guy could play guard if you needed him to. I don't know what the Cowboys are going to ask him to do. They might kick him inside the guard for all we know. All that matters to me is that this guy is versatile. He's smart. He's tough. He's athletic enough to do whatever it is you need him to do. I think the only thing that I would like to see him work on a little bit better is being able to get to that second level and stay engaged in his block down the field. But other than that, Zach Martin for me is a slam dunk. I mean, this guy at Notre Dame, I never worried about what was coming off the left side of the offense and the right side of the defense. There was never any question. That left side of the Notre Dame line between he and Chris Watt, to me, it was lights out over there. Those guys held it down. If there were any pressures along this offensive line at Notre Dame, it was from the center over to the right side of the offensive line. There was never any doubt that the job was going to get done on the left side of the line. And so he was a major part of that. And there's a reason why he was at 16 and he shot up draft boards, is because the guy is ultra talented. He's multifaceted, very, very versatile. And I think because of that versatility, he was selected by the Dallas Cowboys at pick number 16, first round, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Zach Martin, for me, is a home run. This is a no-doubter, tape shot measure. Home run. And as we all know, chicks dig the long ball. This one is long gone. Home run for the Cowboys in the first round in the form of offensive tackle Zach Martin by way of Notre Dame. You move on to the second round, 34th overall selection, defensive end out of Boise State, DeMarcus Lawrence. Cowboys traded up 234 with their hated NFC East rivals in the Washington Redskins. And it's funny because the draft has a strange way of making sworn enemies bedfellows. And that's essentially what happened here was that, look, a lot of times you'll hear, look, I'll never trade within my division. I don't want anybody coming up and getting a guy that they want via my pick. And I understand that. And if that's your philosophy and that's how you feel, I don't have a problem with that. I get it. I understand. Why do you want to help someone draft a guy that could kick your ass for the next 10 years? I get it. However, what you have to understand is that push come to shove in the draft, I don't give a ham sandwich who it is. If I need a pick, if I need more picks, I'm going to have to do what I got to do. And in the Redskins case, they didn't have a first round pick. No first rounder. So that means we're trying to acquire as many picks as possible, as high as we can in this draft, to offset the fact that there was no first round selection for the Redskins. So if you're the Redskins and the Cowboys want to come up to 34 and they're willing to give you their second rounder in addition to their third rounder as well, how can you say no to that when you didn't have a first round pick? And there's nothing here that you feel like is keeping you here at 34. There's not a guy that you feel like, hey, if I pass on him at 34 and I go back to the Cowboys selection at, let's call it 47, there's no way I'm going to get the guy that I want at 34 at 47 if I move backwards. Unless I package up some picks, which to me makes no sense. Just take the guy at 34. So there was no one there keeping the Redskins at 34. A guy that they probably wanted was off the board. And so at that point, 34 became expendable. Cowboys were drooling and salivating over the prospects of getting their hands on DeMarcus Lawrence. Now, I must say, when the Redskins first made the trade to the Cowboys, I thought that this was for Coney Ealy. And to hear and I wanted it to be Coney Ealy, to be honest with you, because I don't think Coney Ealy is anywhere near as good as DeMarcus Lawrence, nor does he have the upside that this guy possesses. And so I was hoping that it was Coney Ealy. And when I heard them call the name of DeMarcus Lawrence, I said, God damn it, they just got themselves a ball player. And this is a big 6'3", 250-pound defensive end at Boise State that flashed athleticism and the ability to get to the quarterback. 20 sacks over the last 2 seasons at Boise State. And I think, and Mike Mayock said it best, his best football is ahead of him. And that's what makes this guy scary. You lose one DeMarcus in DeMarcus Ware in the free agency. You said goodbye to a future Hall of Famer. And you welcome in a new DeMarcus. So you replace a DeMarcus with another DeMarcus. And this is a guy that scares me because I don't think he really understands how good he could be just yet. And if they're able to coach him up, and you got one of the best defensive line coaches in the league on your staff right now, and so there's no doubt in my mind that if he takes to coaching the way that you anticipate he will, this guy could be the next monster in the NFC East, terrorizing quarterbacks for the next decade, much like the last DeMarcus you had on your football team. So I look for big things out of this guy. He's got explosion off the line, and I think he can stand to gain some more weight. I think he needs to get a little bit stronger. I would love to see this guy put on another 7 to 10 pounds. If he could get to 260, I think he would be exactly what you're looking for, because I think he needs to be a little bit stouter at the point of attack, especially in the run game. I'd like to see him stand up and be able to just stand a tackle up and set the edge in the run game a little bit more. But I tell you what, he stacks and sheds well, especially against guys who aren't as long. He stacks and sheds very well. And I was amazed. It was funny because I watched the Nevada tape, and you know Joel Bitonio, a guy that was drafted early in the second round. Matter of fact, I believe he came off the board, I want to say the pick after DeMarcus Lawrence. He comes off the board, and I thought he had a really good showing, did Joel Bitonio, against DeMarcus Lawrence. But when they flipped him and put him on the other side against the right tackle, he destroyed him. Had 2 sacks. I mean, probably another 2 tackle for losses, a couple of disruptions. He was just all over the place when he was on the right side going against that right tackle. When he was going up against Joel Bitonio on that left side, he couldn't do it. So that lets me know that there's still some growth. There still needs to be some maturation here. He has to be able to up his game when the level of competition goes up. He has to rise up to that occasion. But I think over time, he'll get better. He'll learn how to use his hands a little bit better, because on one particular move, I saw him swat down the hands of that right tackle and beat him right around the corner for a sack. And if he can be more consistent doing that, he's going to be better because of it. If he can learn how to translate speed to power, he'll be better because of it. If he can learn some better techniques and some of the finer points of getting to the quarterback at this next level, he's going to be better for it. And I think those are all things that the Cowboys see, and all the potential that they see in him. I see the same thing. This guy seems like he's going to grow into a monster in this league. And it hurts me to say this, because we gave them the ammunition to do this. We gave them the pick and allowed them to come up and get this guy. And the Cowboys knew what they were chasing after when they went and got DeMarcus Lawrence. And I think it's a wonderful addition to their team. Needs to get stronger. Needs to be better at the point of attack. I thought he shed well. I thought he stacked well. I thought he did some good things against guys that weren't as good at the tackle position. When he went up against stronger competition, the production came down greatly. And so you want to see him up his game. You want to see him step his game up and rise to the level of the opponent that he's facing. And so if he learns, and I think all of that will come with time. As he learns and gets better, I think he's going to be a dominant force for the Dallas Cowboys down the line. In the second round, 34th overall selection, defensive end out of Boise State, DeMarcus Lawrence for me, because of the enormous upside that I see and the fact that the Cowboys were able to come up and get their guy. I love this selection. I think that the sky's the limit for this guy. You can put it on the board. Yes. So, all right. In the second round, 34th overall selection, defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence could be the apple of the eye in this draft for the Dallas Cowboys when it's all said and done. He's got star potential written all over him. If this guy comes in and learns from one of the best defensive line coaches in the business, in Rod Marinelli, Cowboys might have a gem sitting right here on their hands. You move on to the fourth round, no third rounder because of that trade. 119th overall selection, linebacker out of Iowa, Anthony Hitchens. And to me, watching him on tape, the first thing that I noticed was his toughness. He's a tough guy. And he comes in sometimes recklessly, puts a hat on a hat, and he's not afraid of contact. He was getting involved in the play. He did a great job of scraping and getting through the garbage and the trash and finding his way to the football. All of those traits were very, very impressive. He played on a strong linebacking core at Iowa, and so with Kirksey and Morris and himself, they made up one of the best trios of linebackers in the entire nation. And so I thought he played his role well on that football team. However, at 6 feet, about 235, 240, 245 pounds, somewhere in that window, he's a guy that's not as athletic as you would like. I thought he moved well, though. I was surprised at how well he moved watching him on tape, because it seemed like he was getting to the ball when he reacted. The thing about him is sometimes he processes information somewhat slow. You look at him and you're like, okay, one play you'll see him and he'll just go. He'll just dart. It's like he watched it on film and he saw this play before. He knows exactly what's about to happen and he goes. He's proactive. He gets in the backfield and he's making a play. And then it's other times where he's looking and it's like he's got that blank stare on his face and he has no clue what's about to happen. And it takes him a while to process that this is a run and that you need to get downhill and get in the action. And that half a step that he misses, or that full step that it takes, and again, him not being a blazer at the linebacker position means you need every advantage that you can get. So if you see something, you need to be able to just go and react. And sometimes he's just standing there. Sometimes he needs to decipher pass and run. It's play action fake. He gets sucked up, takes a false step, and then needs to get back. You know, and these are things that he's going to have to clean up. But all in all, I think that even though he's a 6-foot linebacker, somewhat undersized in my book, you know, you want your linebackers to be 6'2", 6'3", if at all possible. Don't have to be, but it's always nice when they are. He just needs to be, because I love the toughness. I think that's the thing that I really liked and admired about him, is that he'll take on a fullback, he'll take on a guard, he'll take on a center in the hole and put a hat on a hat and make sure that there's no action coming up this gap. If you thought you were coming up the B gap, you're sadly mistaken, because I'm eating up this gap. I'm taking up space here. I'd love to see him be a little bit faster to the football, but it seems like he's always getting to the football some way, somehow. Again, he scrapes and he stacks and he sheds and he finds a way to get to the football. May not be the first one there all the time, but he's going to get there eventually. And when he comes with a lot of aggression. He comes with a lot of force. When he hits a pile, that pile goes backwards. And so there is some things to like here with Anthony Hitchens. I think that he needs to be a little bit more instinctive. Go much faster than slow. If he can do that, Cowboys might have something here. In the 4th round, 119th overall selection, linebacker out of Iowa, Anthony Hitchens for me, because of the physicality that I see with this guy, and because I think that there is some value here. Maybe they got him a little earlier than they were supposed to. Maybe not. I think that he is I was leaning towards a triple, but I think he's a double. I'm going to give him a double because there are some things that I'd like to see him do better. And one of those main things is be a little bit more instinctive. Go after the football. I got to dock him for some of his size deficiencies. Look, everybody's not 6'2", 6'3". He's a 6-foot linebacker. I would love it if he was a little bit bigger. But what he doesn't have in height and all those extra measurables, speed and all those attributes, he needs to make up with instincts. And right now I'm not seeing that. So that's something that I need to see from him moving forward. And whether that requires him to watch more film and tape so that he can anticipate, whatever he's got to do to be a better linebacker and get faster to the football, then he needs to do it. You move on to the 5th round, 146th overall selection, wide receiver out of Pittsburgh, Devin Street. All-time receiving leader at the University of Pitt is Devin Street. And the thing about Devin Street that you got to love is his hands, his ability to catch the football when it's thrown in his general vicinity. He's a guy that can make plays after the catch. Long strides at 6'3" and a $198. I have a problem with that. And again, this is a very easy, correctable problem. And it's simply put on more weight. He needs to get stronger. At 198, he took some shots at Pitt that a guy his size shouldn't be taking because he's not big enough. And he was getting hit. He'd be slow to get up. And at 6'3", 198, you are a big target. You got to put on some weight. This guy needs to be 215 pounds. Okay? Maybe he's not going to gain, and maybe it's not realistic to ask him to gain 17 pounds. But I'd love to see him put on 12 and get to 210. And I think, to me, that's mandatory. I need him at no less than 207. He needs to put on 10 pounds of weight. Easily, 10 pounds of muscle. And at 4.55, 40, I don't care about that. At 6'3", I mean, the speed would be nice. That'd be icing on the cake. That's the cherry on the top. You don't have to have that when you're that size. But I do need you to be physical. And he's not physical enough for me right now. But the fact of the matter is the guy catches the football. He's a big target that you can get the football to. Big catch radius. So that means you've got margin for error when throwing the football to Devin Street. And this makes about the 3rd or 4th consecutive draft that the Cowboys have drafted another big receiver with some athleticism. Last year it was Terrence Williams. A couple of years before that it was Dez Bryant. So they're adding a collection of guys that scares you at the receiver position because of their sheer height. Now, if he can add some physicality to that, they could be one of the biggest and nastiest trio of receivers in this league in 3 years down the road. I mean, because we saw flashes of excellence from Terrence Williams a season ago. We know about the animal that is Dez Bryant. And now you add Devin Street to the mix. I'm telling you what, they're getting Romo some more guys to throw the football to. You look at some of the other guys, Cole Beasley and some of the other guys you have out there already. A couple of guys at the tight end position that you like. So there are weapons here. You add Devin Street to the mix. There's a lot to like here. I just want to see this guy get stronger. He's not a run blocker. He could care less about blocking in the run game. That's something he's going to have to dedicate himself to, because right now he's one of those non-participating run blockers, and that annoys me. You know how I feel about that. So he's going to have to clean that up. But he just needs to get physical, period. In the run game, he needs to be more physical. As a receiver, he needs to be more physical, getting off of jams at the line of scrimmage and, being able to take shots down the field. Because of your frame, you're an easy target at 6'3". There's a lot of you to hit. So if you are going to be that big, you got to be physical. He needs to put on some more weight. But look, the numbers speak for themselves. Never had a 1,000-yard season at Pitt, but in terms of catches, he was up there. And so in the 5th round, 146th overall selection, wide receiver out of Pittsburgh, Devin Street for me. He's a double. And I'll tell you why he's a double. Because he's got triple potential, but there's some off-the-field issues, some things he's got to clean up. He's got to be smarter, and I don't know necessarily if this Cowboys locker room is the best environment for guys that have issues off the field. Not saying that there's a bunch of bad guys in this Cowboys locker room, but we've always questioned the leadership in the Cowboys locker room. A guy like Devin Street, you got to keep your eye on him, because sometimes he can make some questionable decisions. And he can be a diva in his own right. And with a guy like Des Bryant already on the roster, I'm telling you right now, some of these guys are very easily influenced. He could be one of those guys that could go one way or the other. Hopefully, he comes in, is a model citizen, and is ready to work when he comes to Big D. He's a double in the 5th round. Now we go to the slew of 7th rounders. There's 5 in all. Let's breeze through these quickly. 7th round, 231st overall selection, defensive end out of Stanford, Ben Gardner. First thing I think of when I see this guy is that he's an overachiever. He's a try-hard guy. You put on the tape, and the motor doesn't stop. This guy is doing everything in his power to get to the quarterback or to get to the running back. Sometimes he'll beat you off the ball. Most times he won't. Sometimes he'll beat you with power. Most times he won't. Whatever he's got to do, he's the type of guy that just won't quit on a play. And there's something to be said about guys like him. However, I say this all the time. High energy and having a hot motor isn't going to be enough to keep you around on a roster. You have to provide some type of value in addition to having that motor that doesn't run cold. And so if Ben Gardner can prove that he has some value as a versatile guy that can maybe slide inside or on nickel situations, can provide you with a defensive tackle presence that can still get to the quarterback, he's got to provide them with something that they don't currently have on their roster. And so him being a defensive end that's about 260, 270 pounds, if he can prove to them that, hey, I may not be a guy that you want on the field necessarily in your base package, but hey, in a nickel situation where you're trying to get guys on the field that can get to the quarterback, that if they try to run a draw can still stop the run. Hey, I'm your guy at defensive tackle. You're looking for a guy that's a little lighter that can get to the quarterback but still be stopped at the point of attack. I'm your man. If he can show them that he has some ability to be flexible as well as give them some depth on special teams, he might be able to stick on this roster. But there's not one defining trait with Ben Gardner other than the fact that he is a try-hard guy going to give you every single thing he's got in the tank when he steps on the field. But again, that is not enough to make a roster. He's going to have to prove that there is much more to what he can bring than just high energy and a hot motor. At about 6'3" and about 260 pounds, he's not fast. He's not overly strong. He's got some agility. His 3-cone and short shuttle times were pretty impressive for a guy his size. But again, a lot of that stuff doesn't show up on the tape. I didn't see a guy that was, explosive, or a guy that was, stopping and starting and having the ability to change directions and do all of these things. I just saw a guy that tried extremely hard and never quit on any given play that he was on the field for. And so in the 7th round, 231st pick, defensive end out of Stanford, Ben Gardner for me. I didn't see anything that made me say that this guy's going to make the roster, that this guy is a must-have on his roster. He's a single for me. I mean, there's nothing here that screams at me, this guy has to make this roster. So we move on to the next 7th rounder, 238th overall linebacker out of Texas Tech, Will Smith. Here's a guy that is the quintessential, and it's funny that his name is Will because he played the Will at Texas Tech, and in this league, he is a perfect fit for your cover 2 defense if you're still going to be running a lot of those same principles, and I assume you are going to be, being that Rod Marinelli is going to be doing a lot of the defensive calls. He comes from the school of cover 2 defense, and so he's the type of guy that you want because he drops into coverage a lot. That's what he did at Texas Tech. Not stout at the point of attack, not a guy but he's a high volume tackler, very efficient when tackling ball carriers. Normally gets guys down when he gets around them. The question is, can he fight off blockers? Can he get to the football? And he's the type of guy that you want dropping into coverage. He's the type of guy that can get, 10, 15 yards of depth and make a play on the football. And I think that's what the Cowboys saw in him, an athletic guy that is around 6'1", 6'2", 6 feet, 230 pounds, runs a 4.59 40. So there is absolutely some speed here with this guy. Can run around, make plays, can get ball carriers on the ground as well as drop into coverage. I think at times he can be a little tight, and it's not always a fluid movement with him in terms of running with guys. But I know what I saw on tape was a guy that didn't have a problem running with tight ends and running with some receivers. And so I think the more athletic tight ends will still be able to have their way with him, but the bigger tight ends will definitely find it easy to give Will Smith some fits. Where he's going to have to make this team, as every 7th rounder does, is on special teams, and he's going to have to show the Cowboys he has ability to drop into coverage. If he can wow them with the fact that, hey, I give you some depth at the linebacker position, something that you're going to need. Sean Lee is down again. So if he can prove to them that, hey, I have some value not only on special teams, but I can provide depth at the linebacker position for you, then he's going to be on this roster. I'd like to see him get a little stronger, though. Again, at 230 pounds, he's not equipped with enough strength to stand up at the point of attack. And so in the run game, to me, he's a liability. But out in space, in pass coverage, I think he's an adequate defender. So if he can get to the ball carrier, because again, once he gets to the ball carrier, he normally gets them down on the ground, which is evident by his number of tackles at Texas Tech. He doesn't have a problem getting guys on the ground. It's getting to the ball carrier that's the problem for him. And again, if he can find a way to put on a little bit of weight, become a little bit more stout at the point of attack, and learn how to stack and shed a little bit better, I think there's some value here in the 7th round. If he's going to make this roster, going to have to prove it on special teams, as well as show the Cowboys he can provide them with some depth at the linebacker position. In the 7th round, 238th overall selection, linebacker out of Texas Tech, Will Smith for me, provides some speed. He gives you some really good, solid tackling ability. I think in the scheme that you run, this guy could be a really good fit, and because of that, I see him as a double. See him as a guy that does have some sort of value for you in the 7th round. This is not a really bad pick, especially for you being in the 7th round. This is one thing I will say about all of these 7th rounders. You made the most, and you made what you could out of these 7th rounders. I will give you credit for that. Even though I'm not a huge fan of having 5 7th round picks, you made the best of this situation. They handed you some lemons, and you tried to make some damn good lemonade. So we move on to the 3rd of these 5 7th round picks, 248th overall safety out of Baylor, Ahmad Dixon. And Ahmad Dixon is a guy from Texas, went to Baylor. This is in his backyard. I'm pretty sure he was a Dallas Cowboys fan growing up, so this is probably a dream come true for him. Here's a guy that's a 6-foot safety, was once a linebacker at Baylor, was once a cornerback at Baylor, so a lot of versatility here with this guy. To me, he is best when around the line of scrimmage, and so what I'm going to do is take the cap off my marker and put another S behind the already present S and make this guy a strong safety, because I think that's where his greatest value is. Being that he was once a linebacker, that lets you know that he's more comfortable around the line of scrimmage, and his game speaks to that. He's a 4'6", 40 guy, so he can run, but at the safety position, that's not as impressive. You bring that up close to the line of scrimmage, and that's not that bad. One thing I can say about him, he's physical. He finds a way to get guys on the ground. Is it always pretty? Is it always textbook? Absolutely not. I mean, he's the type of guy that grabs you by your jersey and just holds on and flings you down. He's the type of guy that goes head hunting, diving in, slinging you down by your neck. He's the type of guy that'll come in and shoestring tackle you. He's got a variety of ways to get you down, but at the end of the day, it all counts the same. He's getting the guy on the ground. So I will say, as the last line of defense, if he's 25 yards off the ball and a run breaks out, he's the type of guy you want back there, because 9 times out of 10, he's not going to miss. He's going to find a way to get that guy down on the ground. And so I can respect that about Ahmad Dixon. Another thing that I think is a very good attribute for him is that he has functional movement skills, especially when over a tight end. And I think that's where some of those cornerback traits and skills come into play. He never, to me, makes a play on the ball per se, but he's always in a close enough proximity that where that guy catches it, he's going down. There's a tackle to be made instantly. And so if it's 3rd and 7 and he catches a 5-yard pass, Ahmad Dixon is going to be there to make sure that he doesn't make it a 7-yard reception and a first down. He'll be right there. It'll be a 5-yard gain, and they got a punt. It's now 4th and 2. So that is something that I think he does well as well. But let's talk about some of these negatives. Let's talk about why he's a 7th-round selection. He's tight, and his back pedal is stiff. And he's an upright guy. He didn't get down, and he's not fluid in his transition from back pedal to sprint, or his transition from sticking his foot in the ground and breaking on the football. When he's in coverage, he's over aggressive. He's hitting you before the ball gets there. He's very physical. And that's just his nature. He's a physical guy, will come up and lay a shot on you and lay the wood on you. But sometimes he's early. And there was a play in the bowl game against Central Florida where the receiver's running across the field on a 3rd and 5 play, and the receiver runs a 4-yard route, and Dixon is right there. And literally, if he catches the football, Dixon is going to tackle him for a gain of 4, and it's going to be 4th and 1. Now, Central Florida would have had a TD to make. Maybe they go for it. That's irrelevant, though. The fact of the matter is, instead of him either breaking the pass up or allowing the guy to catch it and sticking him and mollywopping him short of the first down, he lights him up before he even has a chance to attempt to catch the football. They throw the flag, it's a first down. And that's the type of stuff that Ahmad Dixon does. It makes you scratch your head. And so there's some deficiencies there. Again, he's not a fluid athlete when talking about running because he's so upright. He doesn't get down low enough. He's a waist bender. He's a guy that bends at the hip instead of him crouching down, getting into his stance. So his back pedal is high. It's not a fluid transfer from back pedal to a break on the football or back pedal to an all-out sprint. And so couple that with the fact that he's already running a 4.68 or something like that. It all makes for a guy that is okay, that is solid but not great. Doesn't blow you away with his production nor his athleticism. Has some of the worst combine times in terms of the short shuttle and all that stuff. Vertical wasn't that impressive. So the explosiveness isn't there, but he's ferocious. He's a trash talker. He'll get in your face. He'll give you a lot of this. And so he's a guy that's very competitive, and he's physical, and he's a tackler. And so I can respect that. There is some value here, especially for a Cowboys team that always needs help at safety. Always. I think Ahmad Dixon isn't a bad selection. In the 7th round, 248 overall pick out of Baylor. Ahmad Dixon, for me, is a double. I think that's not a bad pick for the Cowboys at all. If nothing else, he's going to provide you with depth if he makes this roster at the safety position, as well as give you some special teams prowess. And like I said, he's a short tackler and he's physical. So that all sounds like the perfect special teams guy, as well as someone that could provide you with depth at the safety position. We move on to the 7th round, 251st overall selection. Defensive tackle out of Northern Illinois, Ken Bishop. 6 foot, 300-pound defensive tackle. I saw nothing out of Ken Bishop. Nothing. I just saw a guy that on every play would just stand up. He wasn't getting any pressure on the quarterback. He didn't collapse the pocket. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I didn't see a lot here, man. I just saw a guy that on just about every snap that he was on the field for that I saw, he just stood up. And, against double teams, they moved him out of the way easily. But I will say this, when it was one-on-one coverage, he wasn't going anywhere, When he was being blocked, single up on a guard or a center or whoever that may be, they weren't moving him off the spot, but he wasn't making any plays. He doesn't possess a paw doom. He's not a guy that's stacking and shedding. I wasn't overly impressed. He looked like a 7th round pick. He looked like a guy that could have went undrafted, to be honest with you. And so there's really not a lot for me to say here. What do you want me to say? The guy didn't impress me. He didn't show me anything that warrants me to take a second look. In the 7th round, 251st overall selection, defensive tackle out of Northern Illinois, Ken Bishop. Is a single look. The guy is 6 feet, 300 pounds essentially, and he did nothing for me. I could tell you about another guy that was, 6 feet, 285, 90 pounds in his draft that went in the 1st round, and he's all world. And Aaron Donald, never trust a man with 2 first names. Ken Bishop is a guy that same type of build, but not the same type of athlete, not the same type of guy. I didn't see anything. Nothing. No dominant traits, nothing that makes him stand out from the rest of the field. He just looks like another guy. And again, at 6 feet, short arms, not a big guy. There's not a lot there for me. So we go to the final pick in this draft for the Cowboys. Their 5th and final 7th round selection, 254th overall pick, cornerback out of Oregon, Terrence Mitchell. Here is a guy that at about 5'11", about a buck, let's call him 195. 200 pounds, 195, somewhere in that vicinity. He's a guy that is extremely physical. Let's get physical. He's a physical corner. Up in your face, wants to jam you at the line of scrimmage, will play off. He's one of two things. He's either in your face trying to jam you and being overly aggressive with you at the line of scrimmage, or he's 7 to 10 yards off the ball. Rarely is he up 5 yards away from the guy or up in your face, doesn't actually get his hands on you, but is still running with you step for step. He's either jamming you at the line of scrimmage or he's 10 yards off the ball. There's no in between with this guy. So, right there, that kind of frustrates me because I need some consistency. I need you to be a guy that'll, again, switch it up, and I'm all for coming up and playing bump and then being off, press and bail. I'm all about switching it up, but at the same time, there needs to be a happy medium as well. Come up, be off 5 yards, be off 3 yards. Get in a guy's face, not touch him, but be up close so you take away the bubble screen or the hitch or the slant. Come up, play press and bail. Fake the press and bail. Play the bail technique. I didn't see that from him. I just saw a guy that was either pressing or he was off. And I get why he's off, because he's not a fast guy. We're talking about a 4'6" corner here. Again, you start talking 4'6s, and I'm usually telling you, you're talking to me about a safety, but that's not always the case because you can't always measure a guy by speed. But the problem with him is he can get grabby down the field. He's a guy that sometimes he panics and he wants to be overly aggressive and grabby. I saw him make some really good plays on the football. Saw him get physical and come up and tackle. I saw him do a lot of good things, but then there are also some things that makes you want to scratch your head. And some of it involves him just not realizing that he's in good position and that there's no need for you to be overly aggressive here grabbing and tugging at a guy's jersey and being overly aggressive and picking up a senseless pass interference flag when you're in perfectly good position to make a play on the football. And so there are some things that really makes you frustrated with this guy. You couple that with the lack of top-end speed, and there's a problem. And so to me, in zone coverage, there's some value here with Terrence Mitchell. I'm not necessarily sold on this guy as someone you want playing man-to-man coverage. But I think for what you're asking him to do, and I think another thing that gives him some value is the fact that he can play both out wide and in the slot. He did play some slot corner for Oregon as well. So there is some value here with him. And you want your slot guy to be physical. If you can get a slot guy that is not afraid to come up and press, you got to feel good about that. The more you can do in the slot, the better. But the problem is, a lot of times you don't get to press guys in the slot. They're in motion. They're moving around. Normally they get free releases in the slot. And you want guys that are quick and fast in the slot because you got to deal with these shifty receivers. I'm not sure if Terrence Mitchell is that type of guy that you feel comfortable sticking in the slot. But there is some versatility there. There is some ability to play in the slot and out wide. And so I want to see if he, first of all, makes this roster, because he's got to make this roster first. He's got to be able to perform on special teams. That's another thing. And then I need to see if, in fact, he's a guy that you trust out there on an island in the slot. And if not, he's a guy that you want in zone coverage then. I think there's no in-between with this guy, because I don't want him in man-to-man coverage a lot of times, especially out wide. And so, in the 7th round, 254th overall selection, cornerback out of Oregon, Terrence Mitchell for me. I'll give him a double, because I think there is value here with this guy. I think there's some value here in a guy like Terrence Mitchell, being that he can play the slot, he can play out wide. He's physical. He's not afraid to come up, stick his nose in the run game. I think that he leaves a lot left to be desired because of the lack of speed and the fact that, he is either way off or he's way up. So I'd like to see him, be someone that the Cowboys, if in fact this guy does make the roster, carve out a niche for someone like a Terrence Mitchell, put him in positions to succeed. He's a guy that needs to be put in positions to succeed. If you leave this guy out on the island, you're going to leave him out to dry. He's going to get beat. If you're going to ask this guy to be in a slot over a shifty receiver and he can't get his hands on him, he's going to get beat. So if you put this guy in positions to succeed, then you might have something on your hands. We'll see if he can make the roster. Again, nothing is guaranteed to any of these 7th rounders. And so all of these guys have an uphill battle to make this 53-man roster of the Dallas Cowboys. But because they were drafted, they have a shot. So that is the draft for the Dallas Cowboys. 9 selections in all. I thought they had a really good start to the draft in Zach Martin and coming up and getting their guy in DeMarcus Lawrence. Both of those home runs. Hitchens is interesting for me because I think that if he can learn to be more instinctive and proactive than reactive at the linebacker position, he might be something for you down the road. He's a double. Devin Street needs to get stronger. With that frame, I think there is definitely some space for him to put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. And he's not going to be losing any speed because he's not that fast of a receiver as it is. So I don't think it's going to hurt him. It can only help him to gain some weight because he's got great hands. Right now, he needs to be more physical at the line of scrimmage, in the run game, down the field. He needs to be more physical, and the way to do that is to put on some weight. He's a double right now. Hopefully, mentally as well, he will come in and work and not get into anything on or off the field in terms of trouble. You look at these 7th rounders, Gardner for me at Stanford, a try-hard guy going to hustle, motor runs hot, just not enough there for me to give him anything other than a single. Will Smith, a 6 foot, 230-pound linebacker, at Texas Tech, going to come in and be an outside linebacker for you. I think the cover two is a perfect scheme for him. He's a zone type of linebacker that can run 4.5, 940. He's a double. I think there's some value there, not only on special teams, high volume tackler. However, he can also play some pass coverage for you, so he might be able to sneak on the field in nickel sets. He might be able to sneak on the field in your base sets. And again, he gives you some depth. He's a double. Ahmad Dixon, safety out of Baylor, hometown, homebred product. He's a guy that is physical around the line of scrimmage. I think he's going to provide the Cowboys with some depth at the safety position, which is always needed for this football team if he, in fact, makes this roster. Going to give you some special teams help as well. And he's physical. He will tackle. He's a short tackler. He's a guy that is always around the football. I'd like to see him be smarter, especially when in pass coverage. There's nothing he can do about being a better athlete. He's not fast, doesn't have an explosive, leap or leaping ability for that matter. It isn't going to wow you with his ability to move his feet in terms of getting in and out of breaks and out of his back pedal and turning and chasing and running. He's a guy that's going to have to rely on diagnosing things early and being proactive rather than reactive and just being physical. And that's something that he doesn't have a problem with. He's a talker. He's a trash talker. I think I like that guy a little bit. He's a double at the safety position out of Baylor. Ken Bishop, didn't see anything on tape. Nothing. Absolutely nothing out of Northern Illinois. 6 foot, 300 pounds of nothing. That's what I saw. And so he's a single. And in the 7th round, again, for the 5th time, in your final pick in this draft, Terrence Mitchell, cornerback out of Oregon. 5'11 corner that is a 4.6 40 guy, so no speed here to talk about. He's a guy that's going to have to win with physicality, and I'd like to see him be put in situations where he can succeed if he makes this roster, that being some zone coverage and allowing him to come up and press like in a cover 2 look where he can get his hands on the receiver and then play an area and not necessarily have to chase and run with a receiver. Don't think he's fast enough to keep up with the elite receivers in this league. So that's the Cowboys draft. Let's tally it up now. You got a home run in the first 2 rounds. That's 8, double 10, double 12. You got a single, that's 13, a double, that's 15, another double, that's 17, another double, that's 19, and a single, that is 20. 20 divided by 9. Let's add in these bonuses, shall we? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doubles, so you got 1 doubles bonus, no home run bonus, no triples in this draft at all. And so that's 22 divided by 9. That's a 2.4 double for the Cowboys in the 2014 NFL draft. A lot of picks. You had to know that this score was going to be dragged down exponentially by the fact that you had 5 7th round picks. And so, those 2 singles hurt. There are no triples in this draft. If you would have had 1 more home run somewhere in here, then you would have gotten a bonus for that. But all in all, it's a solid draft. And again, depending on how you look at things, at the top of this draft, I think you absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I think DeMarcus Lawrence has star written all over him. Zach Martin is going to come in day 1 starter. You're not going to have to worry about him. You plug him, you play him. You don't worry about Zach Martin along your offensive line. Anthony Hitchens has some potential. Need to see how you're going to utilize this guy. Devin Street needs to get stronger. So there are some guys to be excited about in this draft. But once you get into these slew of 7th rounders, I don't know if any of these guys are going to make your roster. That's the problem I have with having so many 7th round picks, is that it's a crapshoot with those guys. So we'll see. It's a double for the Cowboys here in the draft wrap-up series. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. I thank you for joining me. You know what I'm going to ask next. So guess what? Who's next?
Draft Zone.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.